Welcome to the second part of the loops video and the 8th video of the Kotlin for Beginners playlist. Today we're going to look at other types of loops in Kotlin, like the while loop and the do-while loop. So let's first start with the while loop. So while loop is just a normal loop that takes a condition between its parentheses here, and it will execute whatever was in between its body as long as the condition is true. So the condition must be of type Boolean. So I'm going to pass true here for simplicity. And I'm not going to open the body because I have only one command. So println. Here I'm going to pass hello. Now let's have another println outside of the loop's body. So here I'm going to print loop is done iterating, for example. Now let's run the program and see the result. And as you can see, the loop will continuously print hello to the console, and loop is done iterating will never be executed, and that's because the condition here is always true. So for this we have to provide something to break the loop at some point. So say for example we only want to print 10 numbers, and we want to break outside of the loop when we have finished printing the 10 numbers. So here I'm going to make a variable called I and make sure to make it with the var keyword. I'm going to assign it to 1 here. And for the condition, I'm going to say while I is less than or equal to 10. So while I is less than or equal to 10, execute what's in between the body. Now if we run the program, we're going to have the same result because I is forever less than or equal to 10. So I is not changing. So for that, we're going to open the body, the loop body, because we're going to have multiple commands to execute, which is the println here and the increment of y. So I'm going to increment I by 1. So for every iteration, I is going to be increased by 1, and whenever it reached 11, the loop will break out, and then we're going to have this print statement here. So let's check the result. And here's our value. So this is 10 hellos, then the other statement, which is loop is done iterating. At some point you want to break out of the loop deliberately when it reaches some condition, for example, and for that we have something called the break statement. So to show the use case of the break statement, I'm just gonna have the same variable as before, and I'm gonna have endless loop here, and for every iteration I want the loop to increment I by 1. And here now I'm going to provide my condition, so with the if else or only the if block. So if I equals 15, I want the loop to break out. So here I'm going to use the break statement. So whenever I is 15, the loop will stop iterating. And outside of the loop, I just want to make sure that I is 15. So I now equals I. Let's run the program. And here's the result. So I now is 15. So it should just iterate until it reaches 15 here, and whenever it's 15 it will break out and I will be assigned to 15 eventually. After learning about how to break outside of the loop when some condition is met with the break statement or the break keyword, we also have another keyword to learn about which is very useful with loops. That keyword is called continue. So continue, what makes it different from the break, that it skips the current iteration rather than breaking outside of the loop. So say for example I have a task here to print the sum of even numbers in some range, and my range is going to start from 0 to 10, and here we have our variable to calculate the sum of the even numbers. Now let's make a loop, and within this loop we have I standard equal to 10, so our loop is going to run for 11 times starting from 0, and here we're going to just increment I by 1, and now we're going to check if the I or the number is an even or odd number. So the way to do this is with the F and with the modulus operator. So if I is divisible by 2, so mod 2 not equal to 0, and if this condition is true, then I is an odd number. So here, odd number. And if this condition is true, now we want the loop to skip the iteration, so we want the loop to restart again. For this, we add the continue here, and if the value is an even value, then we add the value to the sum variable here. Now we're gonna run the program, but after we add the sum here, so the sum is sum, and here we got our result, which is 30. So let's just discuss the flow of this loop here, and for that we have within the IDE itself we have to add something called breakpoints. So breakpoints will help us to debug the app. So I'm gonna have 5 breakpoints here, and instead of clicking run, I'm gonna click debug. So at the first iteration, I is 0 here, and let's just click this to go to the second line. So the second line, I is still 0. Now I is incremented, so I is 1, and now we check if I is an odd number, so this is true, and here it will execute the continue statement here, and if we click resume the program, it will skip this sum here, so it will just skip this line as I is an odd number. Now if you run again, I is 2, so this condition now is false. Now this condition is skipped and the sum is executed, so the sum now has the value of 2, as you can see here. And if we continue, 3 is an odd, so continue. Now as you can see, we have reached to 11, so 11 is an odd number. We're not going to add it to the sum. We use skip and the program will stop executing, and here's our result. The sum is 30. Now let's discuss the last type of loops in Kotlin, which is called the do-while loop. So the do-while will execute, then it will check the condition, so it will execute at least once. Now let's have an example to understand how it works. So I'm going to have a variable called I here. I'm going to open a do-while loop. I'm just going to print the I, and here we're going to have while. So do will first run this or execute this line here, then it will check the condition within the while here. So while I is less than equal to 10, for example. Now I'm just here, I'm just gonna increment I by 1. I'm gonna run the program to see the result. So it prints the numbers from 0 to 10. So say for example here I provide false, so the loop must not run as the condition is false. So if I run the program, you can see that we got 0 here as it prints 0 here. So keep in mind that the do while loop will execute first, so it will execute what's in between its body first, then it will check the condition. So whenever you have some flow of your program that you need to execute before checking some condition, you can use the do while loop. And that's it for today's video. We have discussed the different kinds of loops, or the remaining different kinds that we had with the while and do while. And the next video we're gonna learn how to get the user input. So until next time, stay tuned and thanks for watching.